deceptive, manipulative.
He's also a former social worker and a political campaign activist.
Some people in town say the base is run by aliens working with our federal government to conduct mind control and genetic experiments.
I'm leaving. I'm glad. Thanks a lot, society, for railroading my ass.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the Eerie Americas. This is Vicky Ayala.
And this is Kristi Hull. What's up, people?
What's up, everyone? We're coming to the conclusion of our Eerie October series.
I'm sick.
I know, me too. I love Eerie October. We've gotten some feedback on our episodes, and you guys seem to really... I don't know, I've been getting a lot of feedback about, like, the creepiness. I'm glad that you guys felt what we wanted to portray with all of this, which was to creep you guys the fuck out. So I'm kind of sad it's over. Yeah, but I'm sad, and honestly, guys, my creativity's out the window after these episodes.
Yeah, we're really, like, struggling with November. We were talking about it before we started recording, and I'm like, dude, all my ideas are so unoriginal compared to this month. Like, I'm failing right now. So we're gonna, I promise it will be good, but, October was like, this is like our Super Bowl.
It was the cream of the crop for October, because I'm telling you that we tried so hard to, like, find, like, really good stuff for you guys, and now I feel like everything I'm looking at isn't good enough, and it's probably the same quality that it's always been. It's just that it's not the level to what October was up to.
Absolutely, but we are excited. I'm really happy that everyone was happy with our episodes, and yeah, it's been a wild ride. So we're really excited that this was a successful mission for us, because it's Halloween is for anyone that's obsessed with the stuff that we are. This is a big month. So really glad that you guys enjoyed it, and we're happy to hear it. But yeah, I'm just looking forward to Halloween at this point. It was funny, last night someone asked me, like, what are your plans for Halloween? I went, because, like, I'm so new here that I don't know what they do for Halloween. So I'm going to start looking around, and, like, I know last night I ended up somewhere completely different, a different city than where I live, but they had a parade where I was on Saturday, and I was like, dang it, I missed it, because we ended up going to an event with a friend. And so I was like, okay, but I'm going to find something like that.
I'm sure they have stuff, because you guys, I remember I was looking up, like, a list of, like, haunted city, haunted things, and, like, Denver comes up a lot. So I know you guys probably celebrate, but more importantly, Kristi acts like something important doesn't happen before Halloween. Your birthday is the 30th. So, like, your birthday too.
I don't know. It's like, I've never been a big birthday celebrator person. I guess because my birthday's so close to Halloween, people will be like, happy birthday. I'm like, yeah, who cares? Tomorrow is Halloween.
That's always how Kristi has been. Like, it's funny, because when I first met her, I'm pretty sure we got on the topic of, like, serial killers and Halloween, and then I found out later that her birthday was the day before, and I'm like, dude, what the fuck? And it's just like, whatever, Halloween. And I'm like, I guess. and
it's not only that, too. It's also like, as you get older, you don't want to celebrate as much. So it's just like, I progressively gotten to the point where I'm like, oh, great, I'm so happy. Like, the people I was hanging out with last night, they were like, oh, we got to go out for your birthday. And then they looked at the calendar and were like, oh, your birthday's on a Wednesday. Like, I have to work, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, it's totally okay. Don't worry about it. It's going to be a Wednesday for me. Because, like, unless your birthday falls on the weekend and people, like, make a big plan and stuff like that, it doesn't feel like, as you get older, it just doesn't feel like a birthday.
It's cool, because next year your birthday, it's a leap year next year, so your birthday's on a Friday, so you got the weekend next.
I forgot about that.
Yeah,
thanks for that.
because Halloween's on a Saturday next year.
Yeah, so that's gonna work out perfectly.
Because you're still gonna celebrate Halloween and not your birthday.
Exactly, but it's fine, and, like, whatever. Like I said, I loved as a kid that I was so close to Halloween, because my birthdays were always, like, Halloween themed and stuff. So it was fun. It's a fun time. And not just to mention that I'm a Scorpio, which is, like, the most fun / intense sign.
I know you don't care, but, it is a happy birthday to Kristi, because I love Kristi, and she's the reason that this podcast happened, because if I had just left this up to myself, I would probably just...
And I would have just written a book no one read.
I would have read it.
Yes, you and about 14 other people on Amazon for, like, 42 cents. But I hope everyone has a great Halloween. Be safe out there. Be weird, but be safe.
Yes, please. Because people suck the fun out of everything, and there's always somebody stupid who ruins it for everybody else. But have fun, but, like, safe fun. It is on a Thursday, so be responsible. Please don't call out of work on Friday. I wonder
how many people are not going to show up to work on Friday.
It's so funny, because I'm actually always try to take off the day after Halloween, and people just know. They're just like, that bitch is going out for Halloween. Like, that's why it's just working out that next year it's a Saturday, because it's like, just give me a Saturday, because if you want me to celebrate, just give me a Saturday. Even though there has been a petition by parents to like move Halloween to the weekend, like not make it on the 31st, but make it on a specific weekend in October. But it's all about taking the kids trick-or-treating, which I personally don't give a shit about.
Yeah,
but
and not just that, it's like you're taking away what is a, and it's not
it
just for
something.
Halloween reasons. Like there's Wiccans celebrate Halloween, you know what I mean? Like it's an actual practiced religion for some people.
I get why you're doing it, but I don't feel like we should take the meaning of a holiday away just because you want to take your kid trick-or-treating.
Yeah.
Like,
So
just
what,
take
it's
them.
not
Take
5
them
hours, they
when you
only get 3
normally take
hours.
them.
Big deal. Like that's what we.
When I was a kid, my mom took us to work. We went, I mean, how long do you really go trick-or-treating? Our trick-or-treating did not last that long. It's cold by the end of
Exactly.
October. She took us around the couple of blocks that you knew, were the people that you knew, and you brought them the fuck back home. Like, you moving it to a Saturday means what? I'm going to party whether it's a Wednesday, a Thursday, a Friday, or a Saturday. So really, like, I really don't care. But it being on a Saturday next year makes things a lot easier so that I don't have to call out of work the next day.
Very true. Looking forward to that.
I can't even afford to go out for Halloween right now.
I know the feeling, trust me.
I went to Six Flags yesterday, and like Six Flags is so expensive, and even with the discount on the ticket, it was a pretty expensive. It was fun, but it was expensive, and it was super cold. So I can't even afford to go out for Halloween.
Bummer.
So I really hope that you guys do something cool, and I could live vicariously through everybody else. Before we get into whatever the fuck Kristi's gonna creep us out with, because I'm sure that she's closing this out with a bang. Oh, the look on her face is not good right now.
Thumbs up, baby.
No, guys, like, if you guys could only see the look on Kristi's face, is like she knows she's about to torture me.
Well, I tortured myself writing this, let's put it that way. So, yeah.
And Kristi doesn't get creeped out easily, so, like, I'm really, like, not, I don't know. But I'm gonna get into a Reddit post before Kristi kills me with her... Do I have a light on? Like, I'm just looking around my apartment, making sure I have lights on. Is my door locked? My dog's sleeping. So they got this from my favorite creepy story section of Reddit, and it's from the Bronsonator. And the title is I See You, which nothing could ever start well that says I see
Never.
you. So a while back, I went to live with my dad. He had a big-sized property in the middle of nowhere. There were other houses around, but all the properties had long driveways, so we pretty much had no neighbors. And Dad stayed at his girlfriend's place a lot, so I pretty much lived there alone with my dog. Already sounds like a big no for me. One day I went out for a smoke. It was about 5-6 p.m. Late summer or early autumn, so it was just starting to get dark. When I hear something, I see you. It was said very quick, so I wasn't sure if I was hearing things or if it was an animal and I misheard the noise it made, so I continued to puff on my cigarette when I heard it again. I see you. And the ears on my dog stood up and I knew I wasn't hearing things, so I went to check it out. First, it sounded like it was coming from the paddock over the back fence, so I went to the back fence. The grass was kept short from the cows, so I could clearly see no one was hiding in it. I see you. It then sounded like it was coming from the driveway, so I picked up a fiberglass handle that had broken off of something before I moved in and shouted, "Fucking show yourself then!" I stood there for a couple of seconds, and then right in my left ear I hear, "I see you!" I quickly turned around and swung the handle at it, but there was nothing there. Surprised I didn't hit anything and a little scared, I got my dog and went inside and locked the doors. So for the rest of the night, I just passed around the house, looking through windows, trying to see if I could see anyone sneaking around. I didn't. This is the creepiest thing that has ever happened to me, and I still don't know what to make of it. I never said anything to my dad or anyone else because I didn't want them to think I was crazy or looking for attention.
If it was in your ear and you swung and you didn't see anything, that fucker wasn't there.
And, like, it really made sure to let you know that it kept seeing you. Like, it didn't just say it once and I was like, all right, fleeting, like, I didn't see. It followed you. It was right there. And then when you screamed, it screamed back at you.
That's crazy, man. Yeah, that would creep me out. I don't think I'd ever tell anyone either because it's like, how do you rationalize it? You know what I mean?
You can't.
You can't say, oh, I heard this and it sounded like it was right in my ear, but there was no human there. They go, okay, that sounds weird. And they go with their day. There's nothing you can say or do to make that. It's so scary that he was by himself. You know what I mean? Like, the only witness was the dog, and the dog can't be like, yeah, it's true, it happened, you know?
Right, but, like, the fact that the dog reacted to something, like, really makes me think that something was there, and I would have a really hard time ever sleeping in that house again. Like, I'd be like, Dad, you're gonna have your girlfriend come here, because this is why I could never maybe especially it's a New Yorker mentality. Like, I could move somewhere that's like a different pace, slower than New York, but I definitely can't move somewhere where there's no other houses or anything else around me.
Pure New Yorkers versus me, it's like, this is how I know I never fit in, because I'm like, I can't wait to have land where like I have some open space. But I don't also think sometimes it doesn't really matter where you live. Sometimes spirits just fuck with people. So I think that, it could happen whether you're in an apartment in New York City, or it could happen if you're in a farmland where your nearest neighbor is 4 miles away. You know what I mean?
Which is a good point, because it happened to me living in New York when I had an attached house to someone else, but I just feel like being someone who's so used to, like, half the time Kristi has to edit out the sounds outside my apartment because I live on a main street. Like, I'm so used to that, to the point where when I do go upstate or when I go somewhere that's quiet, I can't sleep because I don't hear noise outside. And it creeps me. I'm telling you, the creepiest night of sleep I have had in the last few years is Kristi's wedding. Because Kristi got married in Pennsylvania in like a sanctuary. Like, it was very, very quiet. It was in the middle of the woods, and I did not fucking sleep that night. Because I had no noise. All I heard was like nature, and I'm like, there's crickets, and then there's nothing. And I would rather hear some honking at 3 a.m. and people cursing and fighting outside my window, because there's such a like, I feel like just New Yorkers just need people around them all the time, because there's like I am like, it's so creepy to me when I can't like look outside the window and like see anything, and I'm just like, oh my god, if something happens out here, I don't, not that anybody in New York would help me, but there's nobody out there.
But farther away, or they'd film you. That's pretty much what would happen.
Like, I don't even know why I so desperately want people outside. They won't fucking help you in New York. Like, they'll just look at you like, I have to get to work. I don't have time for
You're
this
better
shit.
off looking for your guardian angel before some human will help you. Let's put it that way. So.
Oh yeah. New York is. I don't know why, but I guess it's like a comfort thing, knowing that there's like if my closest neighbor.
It's more about other witnesses.
Right. It's like, I need my closest neighbor to not be a 10-minute drive down the road. Like,
Pretty good one.
You're way too excited for this, and it's really freaking me out.
Okay. As our listeners have just heard, my birthday is October 30th, also known as Devil's Night, which, according to this newspaper article I found, bustle.com, is, quote, the night before Halloween, aka Devil's Night, has historically been known for its tricks. Also known as Mischief Night, the meaning of the night before Halloween has evolved considerably over time, from being associated with helping young women find husbands, to coordinated with witch hunts, to protests and vandalism throughout the centuries that increases during time of economic and social strife. I decided to do the episode not so much about mischief itself, but the supposed angel that was thrown from heaven that is often associated with the mischief, the devil himself. I've always heard the expression deals with the devil, but never really looked into it until now. What if Satan or one of his demons offered you a deal? He'll give you anything your heart desires: wealth, power, beauty, great skill, etc. in this life. In exchange, he owns your soul for all eternity. The idea of making a deal with the devil was made popular by the classic legend of Faust, a scholar who claims to have made a bargain with a demon named Mephistopheles, who for his soul, Faust gained unlimited knowledge and worldly pleasures. Many similar stories have been told around the same theme. In some of the legends, the person tricks the devil in some way, escaping the contract and getting his soul back. In others, the devil wins with deception or a double cross. Here are a few stories, many claim to have happened to them personally, about the devil making a pact with them for their soul.
I'm scared.
Brace yourself.
No sympathy over
Hey, it's the end of October. We're going in. According to evilfandom.com, the devil's contract is an ancient belief that mortals can sell their soul to the devil or a powerful demon in exchange for vast wealth and absolute power at the cost of being damned to spend the rest of eternity in hell or a similar dimension. There are no better rumors that surround giving up your soul in exchange for a level of mortality than there is in the music industry. Almost every single famous musician with a rebellious sound, soul, or actions have been called evil, or the providers of the devil's music, which always cracked me up.
Yeah, always. Like, I remember, like, Elvis, everybody, like, they always, like, I'm like, that's the first conclusion you jump to is the devil's music.
But none more so than many rock and roll legends. Few people have insinuated in their own lyrics and interviews that they have sold their souls to get a piece of infamy, and I gotta say, the devil has some killer musical tastes. I'm just saying.
Maybe that's why they consider it. Maybe his musical taste is just better.
Via Hero magazine, I found a Robert Johnson. We don't understand the impact that he's had, but you can't talk about the blues without at least mentioning the name Robert Johnson. He is the undisputed grandfather of blues guitar and music. So there's like, he was the one that kind of set up what we know as blues. And as we know, blues turned to rock and roll, which has turned into multiple genres. Like, he's kind of like the grandfather of all that has become known in rock. His legendary collection of recordings have been a benchmark for all blues artists and demonstrates the highest level of guitar playing, songwriting, and singing. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in its first ceremony in 1986 and is included in almost all top blues musicians' lists. Robert Johnson completely changed the game when it came to blues music. He entered the scene like a tornado, impacting everyone around him and changing the landscape forever. The cause of his death continues to be a mystery, and many rumors have come about the surrounding event. It's also sad he lost his life at such a young age, 27. Due to the high level of skill and various events that happened, Robert Johnson became a major figure who supposedly conspired with the devil. This particular story is very deep and has stood the test of time and remains one of the most popular tales of the topic. There are many interpretations and versions of Johnson's supposed devilish deal. The basics are that he met someone at the crossroads of highways of 49 and 61 in the town of Clarksdale, Mississippi. So it's really specific. Like, story's been told where they know like the intersection that he supposedly met the devil.
Yeah, normally it's more like a roundabout location, you know the state, but you don't really know where, but that's very, very specific.
It stood the test of all this time, and we're talking about, this is almost like, if you think about it, like 90-something years ago already.
It's crazy.
The man listened to Johnson's ambitions of becoming the best blues musician anyone had ever seen. After, he pulled out a guitar, tuned it, played a few tunes, and gifted Johnson with the skills he needed to take on the world. References to the devil do appear in Johnson's music, which only further fueled conspiracy theorists' fire. Despite the reasoning of his sudden talents, Robert Johnson is still one of the most talked about blues musicians in history and has influenced some of our most favorite musicians like Eric Clapton, Albert King, Jeff Beck, many others. I looked up some of the lyrics he is famous for, and I found this song titled Me and the Devil Take One. So I'm going to read.
So he's out in the open about his deal, basically.
Absolutely. And so I'm going to read the lyrics as, he sang them. Early this morning, when you knocked upon my door, early this morning, who? When you knocked upon my door, and I said, hello, Satan, I believe it's time to go. Me and the devil was walking side by side. Me and the devil who was walking side by side. And I'm going to beat my woman until I get satisfied. So it's referencing being friends with the devil. It's referencing violence, and this is blues. Blues is usually about like pain inflicted upon others. So it's a pretty interesting.
Right. Or like just being in pain because you like had a love that wasn't requited, not so much like beating your spouse. Yeah.
So it's a pretty, there's other things that you can look into with Robert Johnson, but it just sounds like that's a story that no matter where I looked, it was, he met on this highway in Clarksdale, Mississippi. Like, it's very specific. So I found that.
So like, even when stories normally have some sort of different thing, that in particular was the same no matter where you saw it.
Exactly. So I found that pretty interesting. The next musician I'm going to talk about is, I think, if not one of America's favorites, it's probably one of the world's famous artists, which is Jimi Voodoo Child Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix held a keen interest in spiritualism. I'm going to butcher this name. Kwazi Zidzornu, a Congo player who often played with Hendrix, was from a village in Ghana, West Africa, where his father was a voodoo priest. It's been said that one of the first things Zidzornu asked Jimi was where he got his voodoo rhythm from, as many Hendrix signature rhythms were the very same ones that his father played in voodoo ceremonies. According to voodoo folklore, if you make a contract with the devil, first, you must trim your nails as close as possible as you can, take a black cat bone and a guitar and go to a lonely fork in the road, a crossroads, at midnight. Sit down there and play your piece, thinking of and wishing for the devil all the while. By and by you will hear music, dim at first, but louder and louder as the musician approaches nearer. Do not look around. Just keep playing the guitar. The unseen musician will finally sit next to you. After a while, you will feel some tugging at your instrument. Do not try to hold it. Let the devil take it and keep thumbing along your fingers as if you had the guitar in your hands. Then the devil will hand you his instrument to play and accompany you on yours. After doing this for a time, he will seize your fingers and trim your nails until they bleed, finally taking his guitar back and returning your own. keep on playing. Do not look around. His music will become fainter and fainter as he moves away. When all is quiet, you may go home. You will be able to play any piece you desire on the guitar, and you can play anything you want in the world, but you have sold your soul to the devil, and you are in his world to come. So that's something that voodoos believe. So when he brought it up to him, I guess he was kind of basically inquiring whether he sold his soul.
Because he already had the
Right.
sound.
And Alan Douglas, Hendrix' road manager and producer, expressed his concern for the musician's well-being. Quote, "One of the biggest things about Jimmy was what he believed in. He believed that he was possessed by some spirit, and I got to believe it myself, and that is what we had to deal with all the time." He was very humble about discussing it with people because he didn't want people to think he was being pretentious and so on, but he really believed it, and he was wrestling with it constantly. The legendary guitar player's former long-term girlfriend, Fane Pridgeon, shared these worries. Quote, "He used to always talk about some devil. Something was in him and he didn't have control over it. He didn't know what made him act the way he acted and what made him say the things he said and songs and different things that just come out of him. It seems like he was so tormented and so torn apart, and he really was. He just talked about going down to Georgia and obsessed with something really evil, having some root lady drive this demon out of him." On Gypsy Eyes, Hendrix sang about walking down a stretch of road for his soul, and the lyric goes, "But first I must make my getaway. Two strange men fighting to the death over me today." On September 18th, 1970, Hendrix died of asphyxia, also at the age of 27.
It sounds like he did, like, maybe he did and then regretted it. Like, maybe it wasn't worth it, or maybe people think you sell your soul to the devil and you're still yourself, but it looks like when he takes a part of your soul, like, you're like him now, so maybe he felt like he was like, all right, I didn't know that he would be taking over me so
And
much.
remember in the beginning, I had said that a lot of what they say the devil does is he tricks you, or he, does
Right.
like something where, you think you've made one deal, but really you've made another.
Made another deal. He makes it sound really appealing, but that's not what it is at all. You didn't get what you asked for. You got what you asked for, but you didn't know that that's part of what you asked for.
Exactly. You get what you want, but with a twist.
Right. But they always said, like, I grew up Catholic and I read the Bible, and one thing that they always, always, always say is that the devil is a liar.
Yep.
So you make a deal with him, you don't really know what you're getting yourself into. And another 27, so...
You're right. Absolutely. And 27 is an ongoing theme. There's actually a lot of conspiracies about it and stuff like that.
The 27 Club.
And so, is it possible that all these people that die at 27, is that where the devil decides to collect you? Like, at that time, who knows? And
it's not worth it at that point. What did you really show the world at 27?
I mean, a lot of these musicians did more than we'll ever do in our lifetime, but
still not enough. Like, they could have done so much more.
Exactly. Imagine going into your 30s or 40s, or like if you're like McCartney, who's been around since the 60s,
Right.
Things make a difference long term. The next person I'm going to also discuss is Jim Morrison from The Doors, that's one of my favorite bands of all time, just FYI. The Doors frontman and self-proclaimed Lizard King, Jim Morrison attributed much of the direction of his life to an incident that occurred when he was very, very young. Traveling with his family, he came upon an accident that had left several American Indians or Native Americans dead, scattering along the highway. Through his poetry on The Ghost Song, which he wrote in 1978, Morrison described what happened next. Quote, "The souls and the ghosts of these dead Indians, maybe one or two of them, were just laying around freaking out and just leaped into my soul, and they're still here." Possession by these spirits led to a life of art, an obsession with death and the occult. When he says, quote, "Cancel my subscription to the resurrection, send my credentials to the house of detention." That's from When the Music's Over. So that's a lyric from there. But really interesting that house of detention, who thinks of like a place you don't want to be as that? But it makes sense if you think about detention, who wants to be in detention? But I think he's talking about a different kind of detention.
A different type of detention.
Morrison frequently went under the moniker Mr. Mojo Rising, an anagram of the letters in his name. Mojo is a religious term describing a shamanic icon or affiliation. The African root mo refers to the dark or darkness. So pretty interesting that he would select his stuff out of his name and decide to go with that. Jim was declared dead of heart failure, brought on by heroin use, also at the age of 27. And so, like we said before, the 27 Club is a list of all these artists, musicians, actors, songwriters, all died at the age of 27. again, we don't really know the expiration date when it comes to the devil.
And I'm sure that he didn't make that even remotely clear when they made the deal.
I'm gonna get out of this part, lighten it up for a second, because I know you're freaking out.
Please do.
Some have even denied their souls to the devil deals, which kudos to you, because selling your soul just doesn't seem worth it. I found this story on mysteriousuniverse.org. In some of these tales, the musician confronts the devil and manages to escape with their soul intact. In one such story, a woman by the name of Raquel Robinson of Colorado, USA, related her uncle's frightening encounter. Allegedly, the man, who was a musician, was in New Mexico on his way to a nightclub to perform when he stopped at a gas station to get a drink and found a stranger standing by his car when he came outside. The man explained that his car had broken down and allegedly asked for a ride to the very same nightclub. The uncle warily gave him a lift, and this is where things get weird. Once in the car, the stranger reportedly produced a bottle of whiskey and began drinking from it, but the uncle noticed that no matter how many glasses he had, the bottle seemed to stay completely full.
See? Lies. All lies.
Out of nowhere, the stranger, who had noticed that he was a musician, asked if there was anything he would like to change about the way he played, to which the uncle responded, no. After a few minutes of awkward silence, the stranger is said to have begun whistling a tune that the uncle had written but had not shared with anyone.
See, they also said the devil's all-knowing.
He asked the stranger how he knew the song, and the stranger gave a cryptic answer saying, I know many things. The stranger then said that the song could make him a millionaire and asked if that's what he wanted. The uncle replied that he would earn the money if he deserved it. They eventually came to another gas station, and the uncle pulled over so that the increasingly creepy man could go to the bathroom. He reportedly waited around for about 15 minutes, and when the stranger didn't emerge, he went to look out for him, but couldn't find him anywhere on the premises. And apparently, the clerk claimed that no customer had been for a while, even showing a security video from the last 30 minutes that indeed showed no one entering or leaving. So he wasn't even recorded on a camera. With no sign of the mysterious stranger anywhere, the uncle left, only to spot him walking along the road a few miles away. Oddly, as the uncle approached, he noticed that the stranger seemed to be floating over the ground and that he had seemed to be getting far away no matter how fast the uncle drove up to catch him until he disappeared out of sight. The uncle apparently insists that it was the devil that night, trying to make a deal for his soul. So yeah, so that's a pretty crazy fucking story, and like, it's probably my favorite story just because he is the one that denied the devil.
Right. And my whole thing is, I'm sure that while the people who do say yes, the devil makes it super appealing. But like the people who say no, you have to know that the devil doesn't like it. So in my head, I'm like, well, maybe he makes it so people really don't say no or can't say no, or if they say no, he follows you forever.
Well, if you follow what the biblical source says, is that man, because of Eve, has free will. So everything we do is a choice, and that's something we always have to remember. You can't ever say anyone forced you to do anything unless you were literally kidnapped by another human being. But if you come at it from a religious or non-secular place, human beings are free will. So he can't force you to sign anything. He can't force you to be a billionaire. He can't force you. You have to be willing to do it.
So once he said no, that's probably why he got out of the car to quote unquote use the bathroom and then went down the winding road looking for the next victim. Well, thankfully the guy was very into like, I'll earn
Absolutely.
it.
And
I'll
as a
do
former
it.
person that tried to, do music for a long time, that's really
It's hard.
admirable, because I know how hard the grind is. I know how hard. Imagine someone just offering you basically $1 million, and
Everything that you're working for without working for it.
that's why it's so tempting. That's why so many people probably do take these deals, because why would you not? Why would you earn something that's so difficult to get a niche into when someone's offering it to you, And
Right.
some people might say, oh, what's a soul? And it's something you don't know what it is until you're
Right.
gone.
And so you lose yours. You really don't know what your soul is or what it's worth or what the difference is if you just sell your soul to the devil. So, I mean, that one is lighthearted in a way that a creepy story could be lighthearted in.
Some people have claimed to sell their soul and actually live to tell the tale. This story takes place in Bowling Green, Kentucky from 1998 to roughly 2004 and has many witnesses, like multiple witnesses. In 2004, Eric Broomfield, a young adult, left home to, be out on his own. The family gathered to say goodbye. His mother, Kim, his father, Billy, and his other family members that just moved back in, which included his sister, Ashley, her husband, Chris, and their son, Gage. So they moved back in as Eric was moving out so that they could save money for a home, things like that. Ashley and her husband decided to stay in her old room, and they would give Gage Eric's old room. One very important thing to note about Eric is that he had an old gaming PC set up in there. He loved video games, and everyone remembers the phase where he barely left his room and no one was allowed in at the time. So super hardcore gamer life. Like, we all know that person. So that was his style. And interesting because it was 98, so he was probably one of the first.
Right, where that's when games really started, changing and stuff like that.
Pretty interesting. Later in the week after Eric left, his mom, Kim, decided to redecorate the room since Eric had painted it pretty much like dark black. And as she was painting, she was hearing whispers as she was painting, almost as if they were talking about her around her, but she couldn't see them. She was confused but kept on. Ashley said she was uneasy in the room from day one and felt like she was being watched every time she was in there. It's funny because you know that feeling when someone's staring at you.
Someone's staring at you, yeah. It's the worst.
Is the computer on? Is like the
That's what I would have thought, like, is the camera on? Let me like turn the camera off. Maybe somebody, you never know what he left on. Maybe he was playing a game where like you interact with someone else and like that person can see everything that you're doing. That would have been my first like instinct.
Logical explanation, right? But so she just said every time she went in there she felt weird. But one night her son Gage went into her room and then all of a sudden she just heard him screaming. So she ran in to check in on him, as all mothers would with their kid. She went in to check in on him, and Gage said that there was a man standing next to his bed. He was very tall and was smiling down on him. Imagine, like, you're already uneasy in that room, and then
you have already felt like someone's staring at you, and now your kid's telling you somebody was at the edge of their bed. Yeah,
I'd be pretty scared. As all moms do, she looked around to reassure him no boogeyman was there, but Gage wasn't having it. So he stayed with them in that room. But imagine, like, as a kid, because I remember there were times where I'd get scared and my mom would show me around. Like,
right, and they always had to do the whole, there's no monster here, you see, there's nothing here. Look under the bed, look under everywhere. But, like, this is, like, a different creepy factor because she's already felt creepy in the room, so she's probably, like, not even believing it herself. But, like, I have to tell my kid there's nothing here.
Yep. So he slept with them in that room, like, that night because he, I would have done the same thing.
I would not go back in that room if I saw a man standing at the end of my bed.
Another night, Ashley was in Eric's room / Gage's room, and she felt a cold rush like a walk-in freezer, and she was paralyzed with fear. And as we all know,
temperature drops
is always never a good sign when it comes to anything in your home, whether it's like there's an actual technical error in your house or if there's some kind of presence that shouldn't be there. But a walk-in freezer is freezing. Like,
right. It's not like, all right, the temperature got a little bit colder, dropped by a couple degrees. A walk-in freezer, that's crazy.
A month and a half later, so about 6 weeks, Eric came by to see the family and just have a general visit because he was close with his nephew Gage. Eric was watching his nephew as his sister Ashley and his mom Kim went out to get Eric's favorite takeout for dinner.
Of course, because the son came home, he needs his favorite dinner. Running theme forever on this podcast is the favorite being the son.
Eric saw Gage had drawn a picture and asked him what these were. So, like, he's kind of like, being an uncle looking through his pictures, and he was like, hey, what's this? Gage explains he drew that man he says was in his room. And as Gage is telling Eric this, Eric's mom and sister are pulling back up to their house. So, standing on their porch, they see a very tall man staring at them as they pull up. And within the blink of an eye, he disappeared. They both saw this. So imagine, like, you're rolling up in a car to your house. You see a big, tall man standing. You turn a quick corner or you're coming up your driveway and bam, he's gone.
See, that's creepy in itself. But, like, you always think that, like, you're the only one who sees something. Like, was that real? And then to have someone else see it at the same time as you validates it. And it's terrifying.
Absolutely.
Especially when your son just described that same person being in his room and you're trying to convince him that that person's not there. And then you see him outside the door. Which also, by the way, I'm assuming that this was, like, either daylight or, like, a waking hour. 5, 6, 7. You're normally, when you think of, like, any type of paranormal anything or any type of entity or anything, normally they do this shit in the middle of the night. You have to be, like, a really bold entity to do this shit, like, at dinner time.
So when the girls were coming in and freaking out, Eric's dad, Billy, grabbed his gun, went outside, and saw nothing. He's one of those people that, like, he has to see it to believe it. He's like, I didn't see anything. I grabbed my gun. I went out to protect my family. No one was there. This all made zero sense to the family, but it made perfect sense to Eric. He knew he was back. The next day, Kim was putting her makeup for the day downstairs. She heard a noise and thought it was her husband waking up. She said she saw a man standing in the hallway looking at her, and she knew it wasn't her husband. So, like, she's sitting there putting on her makeup, getting ready for the day, and she hears a noise. She looks over and sees someone she doesn't recognize. That would be pretty fucking horrifying.
Especially after what happened the day before.
Yep. This man then crossed the hall and headed into the bedroom where Billy was sleeping. So she's thinking there's an intruder going in to attack my husband. Kim ran in panicked, waking her husband, telling him what she saw, but she couldn't understand how she lost the nearly 7-foot-tall man in the bedroom. Suddenly, something grabbed her leg from bed and began to pull her under. Billy got up and was literally playing tug-of-war with his wife and this entity under their bed.
Oh my God.
Once she was free, Billy, like I said, a total non-believer of all things paranormal, looked under the bed and saw nothing. This is when the family decided to reach out to a pastor, and they found a man named Danny Owens. When the pastor arrived, he asked when it all began, and Kim mentioned it was around the time her son Eric moved out and her other family members moved in. Eric was clearly uncomfortable around the pastor, and the pastor got suspicious of his behavior. Because remember, these people read people for a living, so
Right, so he's like, all right, something's up.
The pastor got Eric outside on the porch, and the confession began. Eric said he felt he needed to tell them the whole truth, and here it went. In '98, when Eric was 16 and in high school, he got an odd message online that would forever change his life. During this time, as mentioned before, Eric was obsessed with gaming and admitting to, quote, losing control of reality, but it let him escape what he considered a below-average life. When he says below average, he seemed to mean it. Average friends, a solid C- to D average, crushing on the most popular girl, Marnie, who only dated the most handsome and wealthy of elite of her high school. So, just an average kid.
He's just not feeling like
Right.
he's good enough.
Occasionally, to pass the time, he would chat in a gaming chat room or an open chat room. One day, he receives an instant message from some random person inviting him to try a brand new game out that was based on heaven and hell, where you have to try to be the devil. Which, I'm not even a huge gamer, that sounds kind of like a cool game. It's like,
honestly, some of the I don't play a lot of video games, but the ones that I play are always like the kind of demented ones. So to me, I probably would have been like, ooh, that sounds cool. Like, let me try
so he replies back, sounds interesting, though he didn't start to play at the time. A few days later, Eric was reading a magazine with his PC logged on, and he received a private chat from a user with the screen name Magnus, and in the chat was a link to what he thought was the very same game he had been invited to play earlier that week. When he'd clicked it, a webpage titled The Contract came up. At this point, he believed it would truly be, quote, the best game ever. It was a website with what would later be described like Facebook profiles with names and an ability to post your picture, and Eric noticed that many of the profiles were policemen, lawyers, doctors, prominent people playing this game, and many claiming their success was in part to this game. Magnus DM'd him and asked him what he thought. Believing it was a joke, he asked him, "Who are you?" And Magnus replied, "Someone who knows you very, very well." Eric thought it was a joke and walked away, but a part of him was intrigued. A few days later, he was on the way to school, and there was this beautiful car, and like most teenage boys, he crossed it to get a better look. He feels a tap on his shoulder and turns to see a very tall, almost 7-foot man, dressed in black. He carried himself well, had a nice black suit, had the sweet car, and was clearly very successful. Eric asked him, "So, what's the secret?" He tells Eric as he lowers his shades, "I made my first million before I was 23, revealing crazy bright baby blue eyes, and Eric was instantaneously captivated as he said to him, "You already know the secret, don't you? It's not money, it's power you're looking for." As the mysterious man drives away, he noticed the license plate said, Magnus 1.
Nope.
Later that night, Magnus sent him a blood contract, where he would have to sign his name in blood to be a part of the game. Eric decided he wanted to sign the contract, so he prints it out, signs it in blood, and burns it as instructed.
Anything where you have to sign in your own blood is probably...
And then you burn it, so there's no evidence that you actually did it.
Right. It's like, I mean, I guess we're all dumb when we're 16, but like, really?
According to Eric, overnight, his life completely changed. His slightly below average grades went up to A's. His confidence was soaring. He started wearing fancier clothes and got a nicer car. His few friends became many, and he even asked out Marnie, the most popular cheerleader in school, who only went out with those people. Even his mom, Kim, said his classmates would gather around him like he was a pop star. Soon thereafter, Magnus began asking him to recruit others his age. He actually got a lot of kids' attention at church because Magnus wanted, quote, more followers, as opposed to those kids who would question the supposed contract. So he already knows
who to target.
I guess the deal wasn't being met to standards because soon Eric's life began to get worse. Magnus called and messaged him all the time. He was always sending him messages stating things like, "You have a contract, you must obey." Eric also began to feel as if he was being watched all the time, and he began hearing voices. So, like, he's walking on the street and he felt like everyone was staring at him. He was hearing voices. Like, it was starting to affect him mentally. Those voices were all day and night and growing increasingly louder and kept telling him to do violent things to his family, friends, even himself. It was almost as if his soul and spirit were under attack. One night, as Eric was home trying to avoid his parents and attempting to leave because he was afraid of the voice threats and insinuations, suddenly, like magic, there was a knife in his hand. Basically, he was trying to avoid his parents because he was hearing them say,
he already knew that
kill them, kill them, kill them. And then as he's walking out, all of a sudden a knife appears.
Well, if the devil's telling you to do something, he's going to make sure that you have a way to do it.
Exactly. The worst spiritual attack, however, came one Sunday at church, no less.
You're not even safe in the house of God.
He was passing notes during church to his girlfriend Marnie when the voices told him to stab a little girl in front of him with a pencil that he was using to write notes with.
Oh my God.
He drew his hand ready to do it and was able to fight it off through sheer will as he ran out of the church upset and crying. So, like, imagine you're at church, you're just, like, everyone's just, all of a sudden you just see this kid, like, stand up, freak out, cry, and run out. Like, people are probably like, what the fuck was that?
And I'm surprised, like, his parents didn't, like, notice that something was going on with him. Like, you didn't notice that all of a sudden his grades had changed and then all of a sudden his life was shit again? I mean, I guess maybe because we hide stuff from everybody.
Teenager. How much are you opening up to your parents as a teen, you know?
Right. Plus, it did say that he was trying to avoid his parents, but still, like, that was in public. Like, other people saw it.
And after this event, Marnie broke up with him and things were starting to unravel. Soon after, one night while he was sleeping, he felt as though he was in a deep state of sleep paralysis, half awake, half dreaming. He was also terrified because he knew someone was in the room, a tall, dark figure that stated, "We have a contract. Don't you disobey an order." Eric's made one last ditch effort to be rid of this Magnus entity by getting saved and baptized, hoping it would help. So as he was in the water during this baptism, he hears ringing in his ears and a voice in his head that kept saying louder and louder, "Don't do this. This is your last warning." When he came out of the water, the voices got quiet and he thought, "It's over. I can finally go back and be normal again." As far as he knew, it was over. That is, until he left his family home. So now we're heading back to 2004. Pastor Owens heard all of this and realized Eric had no idea how deep he was in, stating, "You opened the door, but you didn't close the door." He then explains that the devil is patient and can wait until he sees something he likes, and apparently, he had his eye on Eric's young nephew, Gage.
Wait. Let me just... He knew that he did this. Did he think that him simply moving out of the home would mean that it wasn't going to sit there? And I mean, you can't just break a deal with the devil and think he's not going to get something from someone. And then once you went there and saw that your nephew was like drawing pictures of this dude and your sister and your mom were seeing, he didn't think at any time to speak the fuck up and
You would
say
think
something?
so. I mean, I think all of this all slowly happened, but then when Eric showed up at the front door, that's when all hell broke loose. Because, like, it was a possibility that maybe, kid was just seeing things. Like, you try to rationalize that stuff. And mind you, this all happened, and that was in 98. It's now 2004. He hasn't seen this entity in 6 years. So he was probably thinking to himself, okay, it's a possibility, but, like, I'm in denial because, who wants to admit to their family, hey, I brought this person this thing into our lives? The guilt finally set in. Like I said, he was really uncomfortable around the pastor because he knew he had to tell the truth. He knew it. He was just trying to avoid it.
And he also started to figure out, like, all right, this dude wasn't done with me, and I'm going to have to either give him what he wants himself, or he's gonna, attack someone in my family.
Exactly, and now he was going after Gage. So when Eric realized that Gage was in trouble and was being visited by the tall man at night, he told his family everything. And at this point, he asked Pastor Owens how to rid the devil. Pastor Owens blessed the house and put a cross on everyone's forehead. When he got to Eric's forehead, cold air rushed down the hallway, and Eric was sweating like he was on fire as everyone was freezing cold.
Shit.
Eric stepped out to get some air, and the pastor and Eric's dad, Billy, followed, sensing something was wrong. As the rest of the family was sitting there trying to process all of this, they heard this howling, screeching sound from outside, and they thought it was an animal, but they realized it was coming from Eric himself. As they ran outside to see what was going on, the pastor and Billy were literally holding Eric down, essentially fighting the devil himself. The pastor began to pray over Eric and bless the water he is pouring on Eric as he is screaming as if in pain. Eric's body contorted, and he ended up facing his shocked family. They noticed his eyes had changed to a bright baby blue color.
Ooh, like Magnus's eyes.
Like someone else was in him. Someone with those color eyes. His sister Ashley later stating, quote, I was transfixed, almost hypnotized, until Chris pulled me away and into him. So there's something about his eyes because she started to kind of get like hypnotized by
And
him.
I remember when he showed up at the school with the car and like he lowered his shades or whatever, I think that's when like he also hypnotized him the same way.
Mm-hmm. So Eric's still on the floor, twisting and contorting in this inhumane way as every animal in the neighborhood was going crazy. Because remember, this is in the front yard.
Shit. Right.
Then suddenly Eric went limp. Eric has now recovered and Magnus has all but disappeared, at least as far as they know anyway. I found this a while back watching the show Paranormal Witness. The episode is titled The Contract, in case you want to check it out.
It's weird because I've watched that show before, but I haven't seen this episode, so I'm definitely going to check it out.
So the final story that I have here ends very tragically and involves teens sacrificing in the name of the fallen angel. I found this on historicmysteries.com. Murder in the name of Satan is not new or uncommon as we would like to think. When we hear about the kinds of acts that are typical in satanic rituals, the details are so brutal that they are almost impossible to fathom. What happened to Corianne Cervantes is sadly no exception. Corianne was a 15-year-old girl who liked to listen to music and take selfies, just like any other teenage girl. On February 5th, 2014, her life was brutally cut short by two boys who went to the same alternative school as Corianne in Clear Lake, Texas. 17-year-old boy Jose Reyes had already sold his soul to the devil, and devil worship items were found in his room. His friend, Victor Alas, 16, wanted to sell his soul to the devil, and he asked Reyes if he could accomplish that by murdering someone. Reyes said yes.
Like, that was the only way you could think of selling your soul. You couldn't think of any other way to do it besides murdering somebody?
Together, they decided they would perform a heinous satanic ritual in which they would rape, bludgeon, and mutilate a beautiful girl as an initiation rite for Victor Alas. The crime that began that Tuesday evening when Corianne Cervantes decided to go out. She went to a friend's house where she drank, smoked marijuana, normal teenage stuff, I suppose. Jose Reyes and Victor Alas were also at this party, and they led Corianne to a vacant apartment. At some point, Corianne agreed to have sex with Reyes.
The one that was already sold his soul.
Suddenly, Reyes began stabbing her while he was having sex with her. Consensual sex suddenly turned into gruesome rape. When she tried to get away, they dragged her back in, and he actually hit her over her head with a toilet tank lid, and the toilet lid broke in half. So sad.
Oh, God.
The two boys stabbed her in the face and body dozens of times with a screwdriver.
A screwdriver? Oh, God.
They also bludgeoned her further with the toilet tank lid and as well as an ashtray. So they just found all these random items.
Whatever they could find, they hit her
She
with.
begged for her life while they gouged her eye out. When Reyes bragged about the murder to an individual identified as Miranda Leal, he told her Corianne cried out, "Why are you doing this to me?" But they continued to torture her. They also strangled her and carved an upside-down crucifix into her abdomen. A few days after the murder, a passerby noticed the door to the apartment open. When he went in, he found Corianne's disfigured body. Reyes and Alas had placed religious objects around her body. They had also bashed her head in. Later, during the autopsy, the coroner found pieces of porcelain embedded in her face. After the murder, Reyes told two people explicit details about what they had done to Corianne, and someone reported him to the police. Miranda Leal said that he laughed and smiled while he boasted about these gruesome acts. She initially didn't take it seriously because it just seemed too bizarre for her to believe. Like, imagine you're 17 and another 17, 16-year-old's telling you they did this. Like, you'd be like, you're lying, you're bullshitting, whatever. And I guess when you see someone found a body, you're like, holy crap, like, this is real.
Right. Yeah, sure you did.
Once the police arrested Reyes, he confessed to the interrogators. He explained that he was just doing what the devil told him to do, and that the devil watched the whole time they were doing it. He was standing there, watching me and Victor, the teen wrote in a letter read to jurors. It's all good. It's what the devil asked for. Later in court, Reyes smiled for the cameras. Both Reyes and Alas were tried and convicted of capital murder and were sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The case can make one question the truth behind what is real and what is teenage illness, or even if man is inherently good or evil, but sadly Corianne Cervantes was a victim at the wrong place at the wrong time, and I truly hope her family can find some peace. As you listen to this episode on this Devil's Night, also known as Mischief Night, and there are actual instructions on Ricker on how to sell your soul to the devil, you may want to reconsider what it'll actually cost you. The only person that should own your soul is you.
I think that one, I don't know. Teenagers are so susceptible, man. Like, I understand, not that I understand, but like the musicians had something to gain from selling the soul to the devil. They got fame, they got money. Eric had something to gain because he was a gamer, so he thought like, okay, I'm going to get something. What did they think they were going to get by selling their soul to the devil? You just wanted to be like in cahoots? Like, exactly, like what were you going to gain? At least everyone else had something. What did you really get from selling your soul to the devil? You didn't get fame, you didn't get fortune. You got nothing.
None at all. But I hope this episode freaked you out a little bit.
Yeah, thanks. Now every time that there's a stranger walking down the street, I hope if they even offer me like anything, I'm gonna be like, no. Okay, I'm sufficiently creeped out, and I think it's time for Who Does That.
Definitely, for sure.
Just to lighten the mood.
Who does that?
Who does that? Who does that?
Who does that?
Another week not from Florida.
It's a record for them.
And this is from our favorite HuffPost. And the headline is, Man uses live alligator for his baby's gender reveal.
Get out of here. Are you fucking serious?
People's and gender reveals, like, why are they so out of control?
Yeah. I mean, can't you just, like, go to the doctor, get the sonogram thing and find out? Can't that be a wrap?
I just remember when that's how people did. Like, I get it. It was like a big celebrity thing. And I know that some of my friends have done gender reveals, and I love you and I love your baby and they're great. But in my opinion, that's something that was started by celebrities because they have to make everything such a thing. Just tell us what the baby is.
Definitely. I agree.
But if you're going to do a big gender reveal, there's like a million different ways to do it that don't involve alligators. I also don't. And see, this is why it's surprising that it wasn't from Florida. Because when I read this, I'm like, this has to be from Florida. And it's not. It's from Louisiana. So, and there's actually a picture, which I'm going to post. It's the guy with Sally the alligator. It says, a Louisiana couple decided to announce the sex of their unborn baby in a pretty jaw-dropping way. Grandmother-to-be, Melanie Kleibert, posted a video to Facebook on Sunday. This is not a recent article, but it was too good for me not to read it. On Sunday, featuring her son, Mike Kleibert, an alligator wrangler. This is why he did it. First of all, why are you an alligator wrangler? He's an alligator wrangler and trainer who runs Kleibart's Turtle and Alligator Farm. Why didn't you use a fucking turtle? In Hammond, and goes by the name T. Mike the Gator King. The video shows Mike Kleibert holding an alligator's mouth shut on a lawn, surrounded by friends and family gathered for the gender reveal party. Quote, first thing that came to my mind when my girlfriend and I decided to have a gender reveal party were alligators. Dude, there's something wrong with you if that's the first thing that you thought of.
Oh, man. Someone's having a baby with this person? Ugh.
Yes. Kleibert, whose father and grandfather were both also alligator handlers, told HuffPost, quote, they're a big part of our family, so why not incorporate them into our reveal? I don't know, because they're alligators?
Yeah, because alligators have nothing to do with gender.
Right. And so if you're wondering how this went, I'm going to read, and there's also a video that I'm going to try to post. At one point in the video, Kleibert places a watermelon into the gator's mouth. The reptile snaps her jaw shut, and a blue liquid comes gushing out of her mouth, indicating that Kleibert's baby is going to be a boy. Now, really, isn't that also harmful for the alligator? What the fuck blue liquid is coming out? Quote, we have a few gators who like to eat fruit, so I figured fruit was great. Let's get a watermelon, drill a hole in it, add some jello, and throw it into the gator's mouth. Let her bust it open. No big deal, you know? Kleibert explained. And what better way to do it than having an alligator that is 61 years old that my grandfather hatched in 1957? I can think of a million other
things you could have done. Don't totally.
Kleibert said the gator in the video is named Sally, and she's our movie gator. She's appeared in commercials and the TV show American Horror Story, and she recently filmed a scene for upcoming movie Louisiana Caviar. Kleibert says Sally responds to her name and that she received a big piece of chicken as a reward for helping in the gender reveal.
Oh my gosh.
Sally's not just a gator. She's a pet. She's part of our family, he says. So now she's a gator who has a better job than I do. Viral video has more than 5 million views on Facebook because apparently there's nothing else to fucking watch on Facebook. It's ultimately made its way onto other social media platforms like Twitter, where many people express concern for the animal's well-being. Again, if you love alligators so much and you're an alligator handler, you had to know that might not be good for the alligator. It wasn't harmful to the animal, the spokesman told HuffPost, but we discourage and don't condone anyone using an animal as an exhibition piece. He added, no shit. He added, also, it is not wise to have a dangerous animal in such a demonstration so close to humans, especially children. Again, like, no shit. Clybert said he had prepared for numerous scenarios in which things could have gone wrong. I know gators better than I know the back of my hand, he said, noting that Sally had opportunities to hurt him in the video but didn't. He added that there
That's
were...
reassuring.
Right? Like, if you have to have, like, an escape plan or, like, other methods in case something went seriously wrong, then maybe that's not the right way to do your gender reveal. He also added that there were, quote, a dozen other gator handlers on the scene. Most of my family are gator handlers. Like, and I just feel like all of these precautions you're taking should have already been a big sign not to do this. Those handlers included his pregnant girlfriend, Rebecca Miller, because obviously she's going to jump in if something happens.
She has zero risk by being near this alligator in her estate. Totally.
Right? Yeah, who has been a gator handler for 4 years, and his 9-year-old son, Blaze. Because again, if something happens, let's throw the pregnant woman and the 9-year-old. It's, quote, it's like having your family brought up on a dairy farm, he explained, except with gators. Yeah, that's not a thing.
So not a thing.
But yeah, there's your...
So not a thing. I can't stand people sometimes. I really don't. I don't understand. This is...
Like, really, just put it in an envelope. Put it in an envelope, pop a balloon, do some confetti, light some fireworks. Like, do something, please.
Like, why? Why does there have to be an alligator involved? I understand it's your family tradition to be, like, a part of the gators, but what does that...
So then get an alligator piñata.
What does that have to include a real live animal? I don't understand this logic. Like, have an alligator theme reveal party. Do something else. Like, why make Sally contribute? Why?
Like, why have to invite your whole family of alligator handlers in case something went wrong? Just, like, I don't understand.
I'm glad we don't understand people, because then that would make sense to me. So,
right, if that makes sense to us, like that, like, I'm sorry if you're listening to this and that makes sense to you. We don't mean to offend you, but we don't understand why this makes sense to you.
You should be offended by yourself.
Please, why?
You should be offending yourself right now if this makes sense to you. That's all I'm saying.
Like, why is an alligator gender reveal party a thing that makes sense to you?
I truly can't. I can't.
But you know what? If people stopped being weird, we would have nothing to talk about.
That's true.
I really hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I know I enjoyed it, even though it creeped me the fuck out, and I'm probably going to be traumatized. And, like, I already don't talk to strangers. I'm definitely never going to talk to somebody I don't know. But we're sad that Eerie October's over, but so glad that everybody enjoyed it. So we hope you're listening, telling a friend, like, subscribe, leave a review, watch our YouTube, you know, all the good stuff. But most importantly...
Stay weird, Americas.
And happy Halloween!
Ha 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 ha!